Either Democrats don't understand economics, or they understand economics just enough to preserve their wealth, especially if that wealth has been inherited and or married into. And this is no offense against all Democrats either. I'm talking about mostly Democrat Party operatives and elites, particularly the ones that pose as journalists on MSNBC and CNN, that many people are learning to completely distrust with all the, I wouldn't even say misinformation, but the disinformation they're putting out there. There's a big difference. It's not a distinction without a difference. Misinformation is usually mistaken. Disinformation is deliberate. And even when the disinformation is by simply omitting information, and we know this, I mean, since 2016, and especially during 2020, during the Black Lives Matter riots, okay, that a lot of Democrat Party operatives and elites want to forget, and they want to focus just on January 6th. But every time they said these were mostly peaceful protests, that's what many people mean by omitting information and downplaying the murders, the deaths of people. If I'm not mistaken, not only were there hundreds of riots during 2020, dozens of people died. But anyway, that's not the point of this particular video about Democrat Party operatives and why they lost the election. I wanted to watch a lot of the other analysis from many people out there, and it's true that as far as the condescension from people like Kamala Harris and, again, the Democrat Party elites, the head honchos, aside from that, aside from their rules for thee but not for me, what I don't see a lot of people pointing out is that they don't seem to understand basic economics. They don't seem to have read books like these. It's very simple, Economics for Dummies, okay? And particularly the way they completely, capitalism is our friend. Capitalism is not evil, okay? And for anybody who understands how capitalism actually works, which is basically an economic system where individuals have the right to own property, first and foremost, and you have the right to create goods and services with that property and then sell it for a profit for all the time, energy, and resources and space allocation that you put into it. There's nothing evil about that. Right? And anybody within the Democrat Party, and particularly democratic socialists who are so proud of themselves for being quasi-Marxists, they do not understand basic economics. And that was the thing about Kamala Harris's father, who was an economics professor, but who leaned quite towards Marxism, if I'm not mistaken, which is not to say that the man was an outright Marxist. But these are the problems. And the thing is that the majority of people understand many of these things. A lot of Democrats, and once again, from this point forward, whenever I say Democrats, I'm talking about the elites. Look, some of my favorite celebrities like Bill Maher, okay, who he's great for certain subjects, and then for other subjects, it's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And he's got a show on HBO. And I've seen Bill Maher talk down to his own audience, and he's quite proud of it. The one episode where he was on Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, the title of that little episode was, if I'm not mistaken, was called Smug and Arrogant. And Bill Maher smugly will talk down to his audience. And especially when it came to healthcare and Obamacare, as if though they're doing us a favor. Anybody who's got, who's not making millions of dollars, as if Obamacare is a favor to us. And they don't understand why people would vote against their interests when it comes to universal healthcare, and let alone free healthcare. First of all, nothing is ever free. Everything has a cost. Once again, if you understood basic economics, you would understand that everything has a cost. And it has a cost not just as a price tag. It has a cost in terms of energy, resources, time that it takes to produce things, and the space allocation. And healthcare is no different, even though it's about life and death, and we want to have basically healthcare for everyone as affordable as possible. It's never going to be free. ever. So for the Bernie Sanderses and the AOCs out there that keep trying to dangle that in front of people, enough people see through the bullshit. And particularly people like myself who come from families from Cuba or Venezuela. That's why the Latinos didn't vote for Kamala as they expected them to. And by the way, I don't know. I can care less about being considered Latinos or Hispanic. I would think Hispanic is more the proper term, but whatever. Definitely not Latinx or Latinx. It's just so ridiculous, which is another reason why they've lost. Even though Latinx wasn't an amendment, just the priorities that the Democrat Party seemed to have. And I see a lot of the blame game now, where, should Joe Biden have stepped down earlier? That was the thing. If Joe Biden would have stepped down earlier, and if Kamala would have had just a little more time to campaign, no. If she would continue to push for programs like $25,000 for first-time home buyers, she's just going to give it away to people because, the cost of housing is so unaffordable. You're going to make it even more unaffordable. That is runaway inflation in the housing market. They don't seem to understand this. And I've seen even Mark Cuban trying to defend that program. Mark Cuban on Sam Harris's podcast. I greatly admire Sam Harris. But again, these are the blind spots that so many Democrats seem to have. And particularly Democrats who either inherited their wealth or they got really lucky in life and they became multimillionaires and they've forgotten what it's like to go grocery shopping. Listening to Mark Cuban defend the $25,000 program for housing, he's like, oh no, this is all throughout the country. When I bought this house, they had a similar program. And what it really is developers basically telling you, oh no, we're going to give you a $25,000 rebate or some nonsense like that, when all they're doing is jacking up the price of the house by $25,000. So a house that would normally be $200,000, you're paying $225,000 or quite possibly more. Or it might be some loan program that's got a bunch of bells and whistles you don't want, namely adjustable mortgage rates with little balloon clauses, whatever, without getting into all those details. That's why, and many people see through the bullshit. It's not that people are voting against their interests. Stop talking down to most working class people or people who just, small business owners especially. They know more about economics than you guys do. And that's why, and I believe that's a large reason why they lost the election. And it's ironic because when Bill Clinton won, it's the economy, stupid. That's how James Carville was, I think that was the famous saying, it's the economy, stupid. However, it's not like he had the greatest economic policies either. It's just that phrase, it's the economy, stupid, was basically trying to get people's attention to the economy. Trying to get the attention of politicians to focus on economic issues that were affecting people at the time, but not necessarily the best economic policies, especially considering that Hillary Clinton later on wanted to push for basically universal health care. And the way to get affordable health care for everyone is through more competition, not one gigantic government scheme. And let alone where there's no price transparency. And again, something that we're trying to sell Kamala Harris on with some of her solutions towards healthcare, which was, to force providers to be more transparent with their pricing. Well, okay, that sounds good. But Trump came up with that back in 2019. That was signed into law. And that was completely ignored by the media for the most part. It was hardly a headline. We need more price transparency. I think if Democrats started understanding economics a lot more, they'd probably become Republicans. That's what would happen. And that's the thing. I think ultimately it's a shame that we're dividing ourselves between these two parties. It's such a false choice. We all have, I'm not trying to have a kumbaya moment where everybody comes together. But we really do have a lot more in common than not. especially when a lot of our problems, there's not many possible solutions to them. Like there's certain things that in order to solve the problem, there's not many solutions to the problem. You know, there's many ways to peel a potato. I don't like to say there's many ways to skin a cat because I'm a cat owner and that's kind of cruel, but there's many ways to peel a potato. But ultimately, you will find that there are certain ways that are the most effective and the most efficient. If there's 10 ways to peel a potato, you'll quickly discover that one of them is probably the best way to do it. And it's the same thing with the economy. There may be a bunch of different solutions to certain problems, but ultimately there are the optimal solutions. And I think this goes over a lot of Democrats' heads. They don't seem to get this. They really don't. And they're just not an insult to people, but it's as if they're economically illiterate, you know, for the most part. And I think they need to start paying attention to that. And I think more than anything, I really wish this wasn't about Democrats and Republicans anymore. I wish this was more about solving problems, which our nation desperately needs, especially when it comes to economic issues, especially when it comes to the affordability of homes, because we're getting to a point where homes are dangerously out of reach. I think there really is a danger to runaway inequality. There's no doubt about that. That's a problem. When you start having a middle class that starts to disappear and you just have rich and poor. But giving away money and focusing on so many of these other issues, like giving male prisoners, transgender operations. That was another one of Kamala Harris's policy prescriptions to what ails our nation. Yeah, that's why you guys lost, and deservedly so. Hope this all makes sense. By all means, if you like what I had to say, please let me know in the comments below. Or if I got anything wrong, please let me know in the comments below. And check out the links also for my merchandise, such as shirts like these. Think outside your tribe, which is what we need to do. We need to get past this false choice between Democrats and Republicans, between liberals and conservatives. There's a time and place for both. There really is. What there's not a time and place for is authoritarianism. That's what we want to avoid. And having a family that came from Cuba and many of these political prisoners, some who have been killed by the Castro regime that unfortunately too many Democrats still seem to make excuses for, that's the real problem. It's not so much liberals versus conservatives. It's authoritarians versus freedom in the end. Anyway, hope this all makes sense. Subscribe, like, and thanks for watching.